So today I want to discuss hypocrisy, specifically in gaming, but a lot of the points I make can apply to things outside of gaming. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Sometimes I think it's warranted, other times I think people are falsely accused of being a hypocrite. And I kind of feel like I have more of a nuanced opinion of what real hypocrisy actually is. Either that or I just know what the word means, so I don't falsely accuse people of being hypocrites when they're not. And the other day I saw this tweet going around that showed some images of Moist Critical. It showed two videos of his criticizing Activision Blizzard, and then it showed some images of him live streaming Overwatch 2. And it seemed like that tweet was trying to make him out to be a hypocrite. Like, oh, you're criticizing the company, but you're playing their game. What's up with that? That's hypocritical. And I actually don't think that's hypocritical at all. I didn't watch his videos criticizing Activision Blizzard. I have a couple ideas of what he criticized them about. But unless he said nobody should play their games, and then he goes ahead and plays their games, like, unless it was something like that, I don't see it being hypocritical. You're allowed to criticize a company and play their games, consume their products, without it being hypocritical. Like, even if it's a situation where you're talking about how bad a certain game is, and then you go and play that game, I don't think that's hypocritical. Because even if it is a bad game, even if you do think there's a lot of things wrong with that game, you might still get some enjoyment out of it, and so you play it. That's not hypocritical. And I've even done that. There's been games that I've criticized and I've played, even though I think they're bad games, because I got some enjoyment out of them. That hasn't been the case with many games. I don't play a lot of different games. But yeah, there's definitely been games that I felt overall were bad games, and I've still played them, because again, I got some enjoyment out of it. And even, a company like 343 that I'm not too fond of, yeah, I still play their games. I still play the MCC, even though I don't like the company. But again, that is not hypocrisy. What would be hypocritical is if I said, hey, nobody should buy this product, and then I myself buy the product that I'm saying nobody should buy. That is hypocritical. But criticizing a company and some of the things they've done, but still consuming their product, that's not hypocritical. That is not hypocritical. You can criticize a company for something they did, but then also enjoy their game. That's fine. You could argue, oh, but you're still supporting them. Okay, but it's not hypocritical. That's the point I'm trying to get across. It's not hypocrisy. People love to point the finger at others for all kinds of stupid shit, accusing people of being hypocrites, accusing people of supporting companies that they shouldn't be supporting. And the people doing this, the people pointing the finger, they act like they're so innocent, right? Like, are you sure that you've never done anything hypocritical? Are you sure that you've never supported a company that's done something shitty? Are you positive? Like make sure of that before you go pointing the finger at others. Oh, you shouldn't buy that product because that means you're supporting a company that did this really bad thing. Listen, if you enjoy that product, then it makes sense for somebody to purchase it, even if it's from a company that's done some shady shit. And like, how much really changes if you don't buy that thing, if you don't play that game? How much really changes, right? Like, tons of other people are going to consume it. You could say that's a bad mindset to have, but that's just reality. That's common sense. Like, yeah, I understand you have to resist, you have to boycott things if you want to see change. I get that. But unless everyone is united in doing that, it's unlikely that you will see that change. Like, many people don't like microtransactions in video games, right? But how much really changes if I don't spend money on a microtransaction in, let's say, the new Call of Duty game, right? I'm not somebody that spends much money on microtransactions at all. Like, at all. But let's say there was something in the store for the new Call of Duty game that I thought looked cool, right? And I wanted it. Do I just not spend money on that thing to boycott microtransactions? Or do I just accept that, hey, regardless of whether or not I purchase this thing, microtransactions are still going to be a thing, right? And I just say fuck it, and I buy the thing, and I enjoy the skin that I got, and, life goes on. I understand the mindset that, hey, things aren't going to change regardless of whether or not I spend money on this thing, so I might as well just spend money on this thing and enjoy it. Yeah, it may not be perfect. Yeah, there may be some issues with the company, but it's better than nothing, right? Because if I don't spend money on that ain't changing much, so I'm just gonna spend money on and enjoy it for what it is. You know what I mean? Now, I wouldn't hold that mindset with everything, with more important issues in the world, right? There are some things where I would say, oh, you resist it at all costs. But when it comes to things that are less important, and it's something that I think I would get some enjoyment out of, I'm more inclined to be like, okay, well, it's not perfect, and yeah, things could be better, and yeah, maybe it's supporting a company that's done some shady shit, but hey, at least this thing's gonna bring me some pleasure, so I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna enjoy it, and life goes on. I think that is pretty reasonable. I don't think that warrants tons of people calling you out for being a hypocrite, for buying into this thing that you criticized, or supporting a company that you criticized. That's just not hypocritical, and if you think it is, then you obviously don't know what the word means. So I did mention microtransactions, and from what I've observed, many people don't like microtransactions in video games, or at least they say they don't. Like, there are many people out there that say they don't like microtransactions in video games, but yet they spend money on microtransactions. And I don't think that's necessarily always hypocritical. In some scenarios, I think I would consider that hypocritical, but not all the time, and I'm going to explain. But something I wanted to point out is that there is a difference between purchasing a game you say is bad and purchasing a microtransaction when you don't like microtransactions. The difference being is that when you purchase a game that you say you don't like, you think it's a bad game, you might still enjoy some things within that game, right? You might still get some pleasure out of it. So when you buy that game, you're buying this complete package. This package that encompasses both things you like and dislike about the game, right? Now, when you buy a microtransaction and you say you don't like microtransactions, well, then you are directly purchasing that thing that you say you dislike, right? Like, that is different from buying a game that has a lot of things you dislike about that game, but you still get some enjoyment out of it. Like Modern Warfare 2, from what I've played in the beta, I don't like the maps, right? I don't like the maps in that game. But again, I got some enjoyment out of the game. So when I buy the game, I'm not just purchasing those maps that I dislike, I'm purchasing the whole thing. So that's things that I dislike and things that I like. That's different than directly purchasing the thing you say you hate. And that is the case when you are somebody who says you hate microtransactions, but you spend money on microtransactions. But I don't think that is necessarily hypocritical, depending on how much you spend on microtransactions, that is. Because here's the thing. A lot of games are going the free-to-play route, right? Free-to-play, live service with microtransactions, right? That's how they monetize the game. Now, this free-to-play model is the alternative to a pay-to-play game, a $60 game or even a $70 game nowadays. So if you spend $30 on microtransactions in a free-to-play game, and that's it, that's all you spend, okay, well then that company's only getting $30 from you. And again, the alternative would be like a $60 game. So even though you spent money on microtransactions, they didn't get the full 60 out of you. So it's like, yeah, you spent money on microtransactions, you know, so like, yeah, you're kind of supporting it, but at the same time, they would have got more out of you if it was a pay to play game, you know, and they're not in this to make less. They do the free to play model because it works. And in many cases, that is the more profitable model. So it's kind of hard to point the finger at somebody and say they're supporting microtransactions if the microtransactions they've purchased doesn't equate to a full priced game. Because again, that person is spending less on the game with this free to play model than they would be if it was a full $60 game. Now, yeah, I understand plenty of other people are going to spend tons of money on microtransactions in this free-to-play game, and you're also going to have some people spending money on this free-to-play game who might not have played the game at all if it was a $60 game. So you got people like that spending money on microtransactions as well. But I'm just pointing out that that person, that individual who spent $30 on microtransactions, it's hard to call them a hypocrite, you know, even though they don't like microtransactions in video games. And it's also hard to accuse them of supporting this system because they are giving less to the developer than they would be if it was a $60 game. So the developer's not getting the full 60 from them, you know what I mean? Now, if you're somebody who claims you don't like microtransactions, but you spend a lot of money on microtransactions, more than a full-priced game, or if you spend money on microtransactions in a game that is not free-to-play, then yeah, you're supporting this system. And I'd be more inclined to call that hypocritical, because you say you don't like microtransactions, but you're spending a ton of money on microtransactions, or you're buying microtransactions in a full-price game. So anyways, that's my nuanced take on this topic. I do think some people throw around the word hypocrite a little too much when it's not deserved. Other times it is warranted. And just because you consume a product from a company that you dislike, that does not mean you're a hypocrite. Anyways, that's going to do it for this one, and I'll see you on the next one.